Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Ben Snyder.
And I'm John Clark, and we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you are not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and people curious about living a life free of supernatural beliefs.
This is a call-in show, however, we have only one phone line. So if you can't get through, we invite you to tweet us at FFTVKnox.
The Rationalists of East Tennessee's monthly activity on the first and third Sunday mornings are usually lectures with lively roundtable discussion. The second Sunday is a book club, and the fourth Sunday is a reflections gathering, which is a potluck afternoon gathering at a member's home.
The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun local meetup. We often meet at a local bar or restaurant. Tonight's meetup is at Barley's for happy hour. You can go ahead and head on down there. There are people probably already there. To find us at either location, look for the Silver Jacket copy of The God Delusion. And there's another meetup for Friday, happy hour at the Field House atop Bearden Hill.
Today is November the 20th, 2012, and we'll be discussing a few topics, one of which Ben and I will be continuing a show we did about a month ago on Unpacking Atheism, a production by William Lane Craig, a prominent Christian apologetics person. But first in the news, Freedom from Religion Foundation has sued the IRS for failure to claim some taxes from religious institutions that were
endorsing political candidates and such, breaching the rules about not endorsing candidates.
This would be an interesting topic to get your opinions on if you want to call in and ask about that. We personally, of course, feel that, well, I guess it is kind of a mix across the board. Should we tax
churches?
Churches. In this case, this is money given to political candidates. Also, another discussion that's been taking place, bipartisan, I mean, just completely across the board, where, I mean, how much should we give our candidates to advertise their status as of candidacy?
Right.
So that can stir some feelings up in people, depending on who's endorsing who. Of course, you got Pat Robertson who endorses.
It's also interesting. I'm not sure who started it, but there's like a certain Sunday now every year where churches like make a big deal that this is your day to preach politics from the pulpit. That what they're trying to say it's a free speech issue, that they should be allowed to advocate what they want and who they want. So I know there's a bit of a counter to that openly. And the IRS has not been really doing much about it.
Right, they just kind of look over it. And I'm anxious to see what comes of this in the following weeks and months.
And there was
probably years.
And still on that, there on Fox News, I believe it was, they had a interview. I believe it was Mike Huckabee doing the interview with several pastors about the issue of churches being taxed or not. And it was interesting because they pointed out themselves that very few churches have actually been taxed. Even in spite of the numerous examples found of churches' leadership preaching from the pulpit who to vote for, who not to vote for, and such. And yet they were making a big deal in the program as if this is such a terrible thing, such a terrible rule. They want to be able to be politicizing things. So I found it interesting. Even there's no real threat to them, at least so far. But now there's finally a lawsuit that hopefully will get that going.
Also, we have, if you paid attention to ABC, Judge Mike Norman out of Oklahoma's district court has sentenced a teen offender to attend church as part of his probation arrangement. I am to understand that he's done this a couple other times in the past. Of course, church-state separation is a huge issue here. What about sending this kid to church is... Clearly the church has some good ideas, some bad ideas, but as I mean, you're certainly endorsing one religion, and that becomes the issue. I mean,
Right. Why
I'm
not
for
send them
one-
to a mosque or a temple, a Jewish temple?
Well, right, and as soon as you send it, like if you had, what if, actually, that's great, what if the judge had sent 10 years ago, he sent a kid to some Protestant church for his probation, and then sent another one, what if he was just, had a die back there, and we're just rolling dice,
See
and
which
it
religion.
came up mosque.
Right. Or Mormon.
Would we look past this just the same? And I think in that light, most of us would definitely say no. Obviously, it's going to be a very religious area, and everyone's going to kind of just, it's okay, it's just a church.
Yeah.
But what are you really doing? Are you rehabilitating him? And I think they probably are. And in fact, they're doing a lot of to him. They're going to completely reorganize his mind and attempt to infiltrate it. And that's where I have an issue. I mean, why can't we just get a productive citizen out of this instead of a
Well, a lot of people, I guess including this judge, believes that by sending people to church, you create, responsible citizens and so forth.
They have the right. I mean, some people in my family visited prisons and ministered to the inmates there, and that's your right. You can go down there. That's really not a problem. And if the inmates want to visit you, that is, rather than be wherever they are at the time, which I can think of one place that's better, and that's the person who came in to talk to you. So, I mean, your own family probably didn't come in very often, and but that's freedom right there. You can do that. Judge enforcing it, he's using his position, his authority to put someone in a precarious situation, at least by my viewpoint.
Yeah. Plus, you got to consider, if he goes, is that all? What if they don't want him there? And what if they wind up not wanting him there? What if they wind up not liking him? Does he then have to go to a different church, or that kind of thing?
Right. Is he going to be allowed to say no?
Well, there's that
And
too.
if here's well, actually, and this just brings interest. I mean, this is a law enforcement situation, and you're going to have some degree of a discipline here. He has to go. He's appointed by the government, by the judge, his order, and so if he says no to something there, not he goes, but he just disagrees, or they give him a view that maybe one of you at home would disagree with, and he disagrees. Does that mean he violated his probation? I mean, you could see this getting kind of fishy real quick.
Right. How far does this go? What are the rules?
That's me kind of pulling it along, but almost certainly that would be. I mean, if you did this to 100,000 people a year, you'd see a nice bell curve of all sorts of problems. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But wish we didn't have to do that. In other news, we also have, maybe you've seen the protest against, what was it? It was an anti-gay protest, and it was an anti-gay protest by these women who had infiltrated the protest in nuns' outfits, and at some moment during the protest disrobed and had
different messages written across.
Different messages written on their bodies.
Their naked chests.
As, clearly a shock form of protest.
Yes. Messages we are not allowed to repeat.
So, well, a lot of them we just don't know if we're allowed to repeat. So we're gonna play it safe. But
right.
This brings up some interesting points. If you're going to protest about something, this was in Paris, but in this country, everyone has a right to peaceably assemble. We typically allow people to say what they want rather than shut them up. I'll point to the Westboro Baptist Church. Fred Phelps is a lawyer, not practicing at any firm, but I mean, he knows his stuff and he knows the law regarding his protest rights, and he is very good at what he does. Recently in Knoxville, there was a protest. I had a lot of friends wanted me to come and do the human wall, and I declined because just a week before in Fort Bragg, where I used to be stationed with the Army, a female soldier and another soldier had been killed, but the female soldier was a lesbian. And of course, Fred Phelps, oh man, that's exactly what he's talking. So he goes down there to protest, and they have their human shield, And, your point is to prevent, I suppose, the idea is noble. We're going to prevent these protesters from reaching the family and affecting this very intimate moment with someone that's not with them any longer, and with people they hadn't seen in a while. But you got to ignore what the Westboro Baptist Church is saying. I got to meet them in D.C. at the what was it this year?
The Reason Rally?
The Reason Rally, yes.
The Reason Rally.
The Reason Rally, the largest gathering of atheists and freethinkers, and I couldn't remember the name. And it's very hard not to say something to them. Mm-hmm. At that particular moment, there were other people, and we engage a lot of debates with those fundamentalist types, and so I guess we're ready for a lot of what they have to say. But there wasn't a funeral happening right there in the background, and these people, you got the best of them. Emotion got the best of them, and they reacted, and I believe one of the men had basically speared one of the Westboro Baptist Church members and knocked him to the ground. That's assault. That means that they win, that their protest was successful, that you committed violence against them, and you disrupted the funeral. I mean, not only was my take on it. I mean, I hate to interject my personal take on those things. You should just ignore them. I hate it. I mean, how do you ignore people doing that sort of thing at a funeral? But we do have a law that was passed by Obama, and I can't think of the name of it, but it states new conditions on how protests are to be held around these funerals. That helps us. It's ammunition. But remember, in this country, we typically allow them to kind of vocalize. Freedom of speech is a big deal, and we try not to hamper that much. But I would just stay out of it. But that's assault. And Fred Phelps, he can get money that way. He could win a lawsuit. He could certainly get attention. These people go to your town, and the hotel they stay at, they don't shut their mouths. They walk right up. Yeah, we're here to tell you that you're. I'm just going to say that America's allowing Satan to take hold of us, and that our allegiance with Satan and this idea that homosexuals, it's really a homosexual lifestyle that they hate a lot. Well, anyhow, I'm getting kind of on a roll on that, but they're good at what they do, and you can bet they're better than you are. I was just thinking of some military training. I mean, you can train all you want, and when you're learning the training, yeah, you're paying attention the whole time, but you're usually sleep deprived and stuff like that. The people in charge know more than you. The table's stacked. The cards aren't in your favor, and when you're at that funeral, it's the same, and they're better than you at that job. You should just ignore. But if we've said anything that might spark some interest in calling, we've got up here on the board is Faith of Virtue, just like a little one-liner. And if you'd like to call in and share your thoughts on that or any of the news stories before we get into today's topic, which is we should get right into. That number's on the screen, 865-215-2288. And you can also text at FFTV-Knox, or I'm sorry, tweet at FFTV-Knox. Somebody who doesn't tweet, it's me, if you don't know. But, all right. So to Unpacking Atheism 2. Last time we talked about
William Lane Craig, and basically that Unpacking Atheism was a worldwide simulcast put on by Lee Strobel, Mark Bilderberg, and William Lane Craig.
And why, though? Why?
The goal of Unpacking Atheism that they had stated prior to doing the simulcast was in order to inform Christians, internationally, and especially within the United States, about the growing numbers of non-believers, non-religious people, but primarily atheists, people who no longer believe. And they wanted to explain why it is we don't believe, and how to talk to us, how to deal with us. That was the stated goal. However, the stated goal is very different from what we saw, because a group of us with the Atheist Society of Knoxville went to go see the simulcast.
St. Paul Methodist.
United Methodist
Or
Church.
United Methodist, yeah.
It was one of the 2 or more churches that were screening this here in Knoxville back in October. And it was an interesting simulcast, very entertaining.
Well, you had 2 prominent authors. William Lane Craig, a prominent
I would say
apologetics.
3.
Well, okay, so 3 prominent authors in apologetics. Do they do any ministry?
I don't know exactly what
I don't know precisely, but
I know that they do a lot of speaking and they have a lot of books to sell. Because
William Lane Craig, of course, has been doing this for decades.
Craig is described by his friend and interviewer in the simulcast, Lee Strobel, as the greatest defender of Christianity today. So this pretty high-profile cast that they were bringing together, along with a couple of fairly newcomers, Dr. Holly Ordway and Randall Niles.
Right, had they written books?
I believe they actually,
They
yes.
had written
I know
books,
she
and that's why they were
has,
there. Part of it. But
I believe there's a list here.
they were atheist. That's their claim, and that
Yes.
they came to Christianity, both of them through very similar.
Well, I wouldn't say
arguments.
very similar.
Well, no, not similar themselves, but they did both mention that they thought they thought that William Lane Craig's arguments were very compelling, and I know the what was her name again?
Miss Ordway.
Ordway. Yes, Miss Ordway thought that they were very compelling, and she had, I think, of the 2, the more skeptical approach to religion at first.
Well, it's largely hard to say because in the simulcast, they spent a few, like the first 10 minutes or so, introducing what was going to be going on. Then they spent a good chunk of the time, I'd say about half the time, interviewing just William Lane Craig because he's the most high-profile person involved. And then they spent the remaining time with Miss Ordway and with Mr. Niles, and she had quite a lot of speaking time, and Niles didn't have quite so much toward the end because they still had to do closing.
Right.
Where they gave a few bullet point statements about talking with atheists and plugged their respective books.
But I think, we hear about this, they're going to unpack atheism, and I had my doubts. I went, we all went to this thing, and this is what we're doing. This is why the show exists, partially, not just for atheists, but for free thinkers, for anybody who isn't just going to write it all on faith. And we're trying to get these ideas out there of who we are and why we are this way. And it was kind of exciting to say, well, and it's not the first time someone's done this, but, they're going to put it out there, and everyone's going to know why we left the church. And, of course, that's not what happened, though. They poisoned the well. And that was the bulk of our show.
They didn't.
If you watch that, but I thought William Lane Craig poisoned the well.
I don't feel like any of them, because mostly what they did was in the case of Craig. In the case of Craig, since he had the most conversation, they first asked him what to describe the new atheist movement, compared to old atheists.
Yeah.
And then they also asked him his story of conversion, which he told, and then they asked him, and he gave this really quickly and didn't really go into much detail, the main arguments or reasons he has for believing in God. However, in the case of Ordway and Niles, they really didn't go into that as much. They mostly just asked those 2 about, their conversions. They didn't ask them their opinions on what atheists are. They didn't ask, anything like that.
Right.
And none of them were really asked so much why it is people become atheists, why people are atheists, those who don't become it but just are already.
I guess it mutated into why did they become Christians?
Right. It was mostly looking at former atheists or non-believers and asking how it is those 3 people personally came to believe. But it really did not address why atheists in general do not believe it, or are reasons for not believing.
And it certainly, neither one of them fit the description of a new atheist.
No.
I'm certainly I'll give them atheist. I mean, that they didn't believe. That's what they said. I take them at the word. They didn't believe, and they fit that bill. They fit the criteria of the definition. But the idea was to explain, you got this pew poll. First time since polls have been taken, Protestants slip below the half mark,
which makes Protestants now a minority here in the United States.
So Protestants are a minority. Yeah, exactly, a minority. If I were sitting at home right now, hearing that on the news, and I were a Protestant, and I was, I immediately want to know why are people not part of this? I mean, it's a huge. If our group dropped, if membership just started dropping, we'd be, what's going on? And we'd want to know the real reasons.
Sure.
And so they enlisted William Lane Craig to get those, and I don't think he delivered. And he brought two people with him that maybe he thought they were the deal.
Well, I'm not sure that Craig himself selected him. I don't know the selection process for who was going to be on there. But Ms. Ordway is, I'll have to look actually. Specifically, she is chair of the Department of Apologetics at the Houston Baptist University. And she has a PhD in English and MA in English, and an MA in apologetics. So she's basically just a new face on a Christian apologetics.
Right. We'll get right back to her. We've got a caller on the line. We're going to bring him on air right now. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Do we have a name or nickname for you?
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Do you have a name or nickname for you? Yeah, my name is, you can call me Charlie.
Hey, Charlie, could you do me a favor real quick?
I will.
I can hear you. You're watching us in the background. Would you mind?
I got it.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. So what's up, Charlie?
Well, I have this query here. Is faith a virtue?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And the other thing was that there was an item in the news. I don't know if you've covered it before, but it was about a young lady in Ireland who was admitted to a Catholic hospital in Galway.
Right.
She was 17 weeks pregnant with a child, and she was found to be miscarrying the pregnancy, but within days she was dead because she ended up in this Catholic hospital governed by an ethic that even a non-viable fetus doomed to die more important than a living, breathing 31-year-old woman.
Right.
So that's faith. Now, is that a virtue?
Well, I don't know if I'd immediately just label that as period faith. They're clinging to a position that I think they don't have any not legal, but they don't. I think it's immoral that they're doing that. That they're just saying, well, we.
But it's by faith. They're doing it by faith. That's the position of the Catholic Church.
Right.
And
well,
you said more
on some level, yes. A lot of people do say, well, I just believe this is so. And you can't change my mind.
I think. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I kind of see where you're. Well, maybe where you're steering it. Did a sound medical procedure take place? And the answer is no. No, absolutely not. And
she was admitted to this hospital.
Right.
She was miscarrying. She was severe. And she should have had an
DNC.
Yeah.
But because it was a Catholic hospital, they wouldn't give her an abortion. This is in Ireland, where the Catholic Church
it's a huge
still holds sway over the political process.
Which is very surprising, considering how much damage they've done over there with regard to sex scandals and children.
So, in that sense, I mean, it's certainly not. And I kind of, when you ask it, and I immediately disagree with this 100%. I mean, surely the hospital, the doctors involved, when faced with a decision like this, I think perhaps the Hippocratic Oath might have something to say about it. But I think a sound medical procedure, when you know it needs to happen to save the life.
Because instead of saving one life, they just threw away both.
They threw away both, right?
Now, exactly, and that's exactly the point.
I agree, but what I'm tempted to do, Charlie, is try to save her somehow and make it virtuous, just as a way to see if I can. And if I thought that I was a child of God, and this goes for the lawmakers, for the doctors, and I thought that all life started at conception, conception in this case, right? At least.
You're correct.
And that it had a soul, and even then, I would be very bothered by the whole situation. But if I thought to myself, I can't kill the, I don't know, it becomes very confusing, at least in some minds.
I don't think it's it's certainly not very confused in my mind.
Well, right. I mean, and I agree.
You have this fetus that is going to die anyhow.
Exactly.
You condemn this woman who, very talented young woman, to die because you think that there is something called a soul in this fetus.
Right.
Well, yeah. There's a very disturbing tendency for some people who are anti-abortion to not consider certain scenarios such as this, or even.
I think it's more than disturbing. I think it's criminal. I think the administrators of that hospital and the doctors who refuse.
Yes, that is criminal.
Woman's life should be tried.
I agree, but I don't think it's criminal for people to hold an opinion, which is what I was discussing.
It's not criminal for people to hold an opinion if it doesn't influence somebody else.
Right.
If I hold an opinion that says you guys die because I don't want to kill.
Sure, but opinion and action are two different things.
And that is criminal.
Yes, but opinion and action are two different things. So I agree with you. Actions, yes, can be criminal. Yeah. Opinion, no. But I was just going to say, I've known people who feel that even if the child is dead, brain dead within the womb, you shouldn't do an abortion to remove it. There are people who believe that if
you can't sympathize with people that way.
Right. No. But and
this is the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Catholic Church in this country. This is the Paul Ryan position.
It is. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is a Paul Ryan position. It is other Catholics.
Let me ask you this, Charlie, because we actually did discuss this slightly before the show started, because we were going to bring it up in a certain light. And here's what I'm thinking. Okay, let's say, because I'm trying to look behind the eyes of this true believer, well, in this case, I don't know the specifics. I don't know what she was thinking. Do you know what her wish was?
Whose wish?
The patient.
The patient. I'm sure the patient would like to have been aborted.
Well, hang on.
You have to understand the Catholic Church.
No.
Runs most of those hospitals probably in Ireland.
Hang on, I do.
Most of the hospitals here.
Right, I do understand.
The person doesn't necessarily have a choice when they're in an emergency situation.
Right, but they do have some choices predetermined, and I can see what you mean. I'm trying to find the only case where I would find it acceptable for this type of thing to happen.
I can't see any case where it.
Well, I want to submit one. I want to submit one.
And I think that you people who are free thinkers should not even consider there's any acceptable case.
Oh, I think everyone should consider if there is an acceptable case.
I think I have to leave it open.
Because if there is an acceptable case, then it's simply an acceptable case.
We are. Hang on one second, Charlie. We're getting slightly.
I mean, there is no acceptable case to let a woman die.
That we know of.
What do you mean that we know?
That we know of. That we know of.
Hang on. We're off topic here.
Well,
I'm not talking about we're not talking about the situation in Ireland anymore. My hypothetical situation could happen here as well, and it could happen under all sorts of laws that you would appreciate. If in advance the person had said, if this situation occurs, I don't want the procedure.
I don't think there was any such thing.
We're not saying that.
I understand that. I understand.
We're not saying that happened.
I understand that. I'm talking about a hypothetical situation. Right?
Well, let's not talk about hypothetical situations. Let's talk about the actual real.
We already did, though, and I think all three of us said we would not have approved
the real, and I think we've already established we agree. What John's wanting to do is point out.
Okay. Well, I think I've made my point, and if you guys want to dissimulate somewhat on this, you can.
Oh, okay.
But I'll just let you go on with your program. But I think that this was the most disgusting act that I have ever heard of.
Ooh, it's one of.
One that's approved by the Roman Catholic Church.
And I agree. Yeah.
So, we'll let you guys go ahead. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you.
Bye.
All right, thanks.
Take care.
I guess I'm trying to get in the mind of who. Well, you know what? Let's pause for a moment, leave our mid-program break.
All right. In case you were just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions. Shows are live most every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Community Access Television. You can also see us streaming online outside the Knoxville area. Just go to ctvknox.org.
It's the call-in show, and we are live today, November 20th, 2012. And viewers can call in now to the number on the screen or tweet them to us at FFTVKnox.
The Atheist Society of Knoxville meets 2 times a week. We have evening meetups for fun, food, drink, and conversation. Our purpose is to supply a venue for community, camaraderie, and outreach to atheists, agnostics, freethinkers, and other like-minded persons in the East Tennessee area.
The Rationalist of East Tennessee is Sunday activities involving lively presentations and discussions of subjects topical and timeless. Once a month we get together for a book club. You need not have read the book to attend, but of course it helps.
Both the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee help to provide social outlets where you'll find that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone.
All right, well, back to...
I believe we have a video to play now. So, give him a moment to do that.
All right.
Well, okay.
While we're working on that, really quickly, to continue on, we just had a caller who, if you knew about the recent
situation
issue in Ireland, we had a young girl. It was a young girl, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or sorry. Yeah. And her medical procedure may have been compromised by religious authority, and in fact probably was. Right. I was going to give a description because I'm trying to get in the mind of someone who would okay this type of procedure,
or lack of procedure, you mean?
Or lack of
for it to have gone the way it did.
And we'll get to that. We got a caller, and we'll go ahead and bring him on. Mm-hmm. Caller, hello. You're live on the air. Could we have a nickname for you or a name?
Hey guys, this is Dietrich.
Dietrich, hey.
Dietrich, hello.
So interesting subject tonight. Is faith a virtue? Mm-hmm. And I was listening. And the entire time I was thinking about basically how faith kind of affects people. Like there's such thing as faith healing. Mm-hmm. We'll kind of pray for something to work. And a lot of that has always struck me as kind of self-hypnosis for people effect.
Did you say self-hypnosis?
Kind of where faith and hope kind of in it and how useful and harmful it can be in situations.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not talk about a conversation because I mean, you have cases about people down there and whatever someone say with that and that hope motivation and
Dietrich?
So that they
Hey Dietrich, can you hear us?
We're having trouble. You're breaking up as you're going.
Okay.
Sorry.
Nope.
Could you rephrase that really quickly? Sorry.
I'll just start again. Basically, kind of where faith and hope differentiates, and how useful or harmful. For example, about years ago, there were 3 cases of the Swiss woman who died on the sunlight diet because she believed some guru and lived to like 70 without eating. So she tried that and she killed herself from it. But there are people who have terminal cancer that are told to have faith in God. They keep working towards their goal so they don't give up hope and purpose. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of wondered, where faith and hope begin and end.
I got that last part. Did you get much of that?
Okay, Dietrich,
Am I breaking up too much?
we're still having trouble, but let me see if I got it. Let me see if I got it. You said that there was a lady who did something called the sunlight diet,
That's the John.
who wound up dying as a result.
Yeah, it was the sunlight diet, and you don't eat, and you try to absorb sunlight. But she had faith that her spirit would, fly her with that, even though she doesn't have.
Right.
Chlorophyll.
I think even though our topic is faith a virtue, I'm not sure that's an appropriate question here.
Or the
But are you calling on a cell phone by any chance?
I am on.
Okay, just so you know, you're breaking up a lot, but it sounds like you can hear me. So in this case, because as soon as I hear faith, I personally believe faith can be a virtue, and even if it's ignorant at the time. And some people might say that that's not virtuous, and I think that is the dominant argument there. But I'm trying not to step on too many toes at the same time. I'm playing devil's advocate here of the faithful that are listening to this to a degree here, and I'm not sure I like the way that that's phrased. Clearly, that was medically ignorant.
Very much.
And not the best procedure for that person. And if she died due to it, I think that that's ridiculous. And I think that that's a pretty poor reason for believing that light, was it? We're talking about sunlight?
I believe so.
Sunlight has those particular healing properties. I don't know what those properties were supposed to be. I know what they do regarding some vitamin production in the body, but aside from that, yeah.
But I'll try to make this brief because I know I'm cutting up a lot.
Well, that's crystal clear, so keep going.
To me, faith seems like a very strong form of hope.
What?
A very strong form of hope.
Okay, yeah.
Go on.
And basically, from that, is it virtuous to believe in something basically that might not be true, but it gives you comfort if it does hurt some people?
I see. I'm concerned over with regard to faith. I don't know what John thinks of faith because I didn't expect him to say that he thinks it can be virtuous. So it may depend on what he's thinking of. But I think very similar along the lines of you with regard to what it is. I think it is too much certainty in something you shouldn't be so certain about. And it is largely a very hope-based thing. It's even in the Bible. It says it's things hoped for, belief in things hoped for, and I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's a good way to do things.
You have to commit the ignorance portion to get the faith out of it. I think if you pause in the middle of that statement, the belief, hoping for something, knowing good and well something is unlikely to occur, and you hope for it, I do not think is faithful. I think you have to commit the ignorance portion. I think you have to say, no, I'm gonna hope even though it's not so. I'm gonna hope even though, hope that 1 + 1 = 1.5 or something. That has to commit the ignorance portion. I don't think hope in itself, because that could be.
Hope kind of admits its own fallibility. It's kind of you hope in situation.
Well, I mean, hope is in the form of an emergent property of emotion, and I think it's irrelevant. And when I hear the word virtue, I do not think that is something that has a clear definition for many people. I mean, I hit it real quick here, and having or showing high moral standards. So regarding the person's stance on, let's say we treat morality as, do you listen to scientists over your minister? In that case, if you have some sort of view on morality that those two things are separate, or that even similar in a lot of ways, you could have ignorance of medical procedure and still be hopeful, and in my opinion, because the word's so mushy, still be virtuous. You could have high moral standards. You're just stupid, or you're ignorant. And I mean, I throw that out there like
virtuous, though. Like with regard to morality, though, it's subjective. So of course, it's going to.
That's what I'm saying. I don't like the word.
But I don't mind. I don't mind asking if you subjectively think it's virtuous.
Right.
That's the point. That's to get people's opinions and find out what they think.
So I mean, is it a virtue? And of course, you understand the person who uses faith and thinks it's virtuous isn't going to reply to you with this medical procedure. They're going to say, well, virtue, my faith saved me in a car accident, or my faith got my marriage back together, or my faith helped me through some hard times. And they're not lying to you. They just don't know what really helped them, or they think they know. And was there virtue in that? Sure. I think there absolutely has to be, especially in wartime. But is it ignorant? Yeah, I think it's ignorant too.
So, Dietrich, do you have anything else?
I know, I just, the show was kind of hijacked. I figured I'd kind of hop in there and get it back on the main subject.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, take care.
Dietrich came in very clear there at the end.
Yes.
Yeah. But I just, you see, I'm not trying to say that faith is a good thing. I don't like, again, I think it emotionally. I think it's completely a bad thing. I think I'd probably take Hitchens' view on God is not great. Ultimately, I would have to at this point. But I could see how people would use it as a virtue. I could see how virtue could come from it. But there's some mushiness in there. There's some. Daniel Dennett had a term for this. Can't remember what it is right now. I wish I could. Just took you guys out on a cliff and dropped you off. I can't remember the word. I will try to get that to you.
All right. But I think faith is so far as believing something for which you do not have sufficient evidence or reason to, or a good amount of. Yes, I think ignorance is a large part of faith. But even then, I've encountered people where you can tell them or show them things, and they remain. So I'm not convinced that ignorance is entirely involved.
In that case, it's certainly not. I think that's when they know.
But it's still faith. It's still a matter of faith because they're like, no, I still believe in this, no matter what you show me or tell me.
In a sense, I want to say that's very pure faith. They know, and still, this is what, like, I bring up the doubting Thomas story a lot when I hear this one. I mean, this is faith. Thomas, man, had you just believed, I had to show you. And, Jesus shows him the scars. For those of you who don't know the book and who don't read the Bible.
One of Jesus' own disciples, nicknamed by many Doubting Thomas now. Yes, he did not believe that Jesus had returned from the dead until he appeared before him and allowed him to touch his wounds and so forth, which Thomas asked to do, and he received.
And Jesus said, that's not what I want. I'm not gonna.
Well, he doesn't say that. Away. He doesn't say that even. It's interesting because Jesus. Well, I think you're putting words in there that I think pastors would like to put in there, because a lot of pastors do want to make Thomas sound like a helpful person. But the thing is that Jesus doesn't condemn Thomas for doing it. Rather, what he says is that those who believe in me without needing this.
Those are the ones.
That need to see me. He says those are. No, he just said they're more blessed and more fortunate. But he says nothing about it being a terrible thing or even a bad thing for people who have asked to actually see the evidence and then him give it to them.
It's a very objective look at that story. and a good one. So, but I just, and that's what I think. And there are lots of people out there who they don't know why they have faith. I think that's a whole lot of people, and I don't know quite what it means. They're just taught that that's what they need. And it, for them anyways, and for a lot of folks, and for the lot of folks that are leaving the church, which is point on to this topic, they're realizing that that's the case. They don't quite have it, and they're just annoyed. I mean, I would have told Jesus to, dude, you show me those scars, all right?
Yeah.
And then I'll believe.
Exactly.
And that's just for the time period. That's not good enough right now. I need more, but and I would have been upset. So anyway.
Yeah. But the Unpacking Atheism thing, Mr. Niles, I found, I don't think that they gave him enough time to really get into anything.
Right. It's hard to talk about
a lot of his story with.
His basically, like, he got into his story fairly fine, but he didn't have as much time by the time it was his turn because Miss Ordway and Greg, required so much for themselves. So Mr. Niles, told about. He grew up basically hedonist and materialist. Didn't really care about much things in life. Was quite successful though. I think
Lived in Silicon Valley with the heathens.
managed to get degrees in like law and I think business, and he didn't consider anything about gods or Christianity or anything. No, he didn't even look into it. Didn't care until his mother was diagnosed with I think it was fatal form of cancer, and it was then that he started realizing, oh my gosh, mortality. I'm going to die, and so he started looking into all the different religions, and that he came to the conclusion that Christianity must be true.
And also that he had his mother. There was an issue with his mom. She was in the hospital.
Oh, that's what I said.
Oh, sorry.
Diagnosed with cancer.
I was not paying attention.
You were not.
But
Try again.
I was paying attention when we both attended the thing. So,
Yes, you were.
I agree. But they both. Here's what's interesting. We'll take it to that topic later. We've got a call in.
Oh.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Could we have a nickname for you?
Just call me Russell's Teapot.
All right, Russell's Teapot. I'm just gonna call you T. All right.
Hey, that works. By the way, I heard the very beginning of the show about the Westboro Baptist group.
Okay.
And, of course, they're no more a Baptist church than they are a Buddhist church. That's a family with a pathetic and bizarre attitude. But in a free society, inside certain frameworks, we have to allow that. I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. The agnostic position says that all this furor and fluff and kerfuffle over something that doesn't exist is kind of silly.
I'm not sure that's what the agnostic position means.
But please, no.
Well, go ahead though. Yeah.
Well, I'm getting some feedback, but in any event, the criticism I have of the new atheists is that I agree with, I guess, Michael Kitchener's book where he talked about the joy of secularism, that the mistakes that the new atheists, they knew it as a very jihadi attack on faith, attack, destroy, underlie, it's a disease, and they ignored the basic needs that these mythologies provide for humans.
I see.
And that if the non-believers, if you will, spend more time with develop a sort of metaphysical naturalist or a true philosophy of naturalism, that more than need just leave people hanging in midair. Your faith destroyed. Now what? And the people then go from an atheism to sort of becoming a Wiccan or enneagrams or astrology or existential doubt or guilt. Anyway, I just feel like the metaphysical naturalism that recognizes that human needs that these things involve to be useful.
Go ahead, Ben.
I disagree with your use of agnosticism as a term. For example, I'm an atheist, but I'm also agnostic.
I said agnostic.
Oh, you said
agnostic.
My apologies.
Yeah,
Agnosticism, agnosticism, from what I understand, simply says, that God is so undefinable.
I'm sorry?
Could you made a big difference, didn't it?
Well, no, but it still doesn't. It still doesn't make sense.
Well,
it doesn't make sense to me.
We're having trouble hearing you. Is why we.
That's a terrible audio.
Okay, it's okay, but even then, agnosticism, from what I understand, it just says that the concept of God is so blurry and convoluted that it's not even worth discussing whether it exists before we know what it is. I don't think agnosticism itself alone has anything to say about what new atheists should or shouldn't do.
Oh, no, I wasn't implying that at all. I simply said they say the whole thing's a waste of time.
Well, yeah, but arguably I feel the same way. You could also call me agnostic, that I think it is largely not necessarily a waste of time, but I agree that it is
murky.
It is difficult until someone gives me their definition of God, but I don't demand that all of them get together and decide together what God is. I'll deal with each person as they come to me, but I am agnostic in that I think, no one has, that there's not a clear consensus.
I guess my point was about the new atheist Dawkins and Sarah Harris, and then they're so radical in their jihadi attack on faith.
Would you mind expounding on the term jihadi? I mean, would you give an example of
Sam Harris says certain people should not be allowed to live if they have certain ideas. He says we should blow up Muslim some Muslim countries.
I don't know.
Sam Harris has never said that I know of.
There are things I disagree with Sam Harris on. For example, he has, what I do know he has said is that he has argued in favor of racial profiling against Muslim-looking people at airports. I disagree with that. I have never heard Harris advocate violence.
Sam Harris's book.
Yeah. Which one?
Which one?
If you read all of Harris, you said God isn't.
I've read The End of Faith. Have you read The End of Faith?
Wait, which one? Hold on, which book?
Yes, I'm having a terrible time hearing you, I'm sorry.
Okay, what book did you say it's in?
The End of Faith.
It's not in there. I've read that book. I own that book. It's not. Nowhere in there says.
I can barely hear you, but I'm sorry about that. But I think that this is an important discussion. Those people who have a different view of faith, and you say it's faith, diverse or whatever it is, it provides some need for human beings.
I'm sure that people. My parents are Christian, and I used to be Christian.
Care about that.
I don't care if you care about that either.
I don't care about that either.
Well, let me finish.
Do you care about Ben enough to let him talk?
Yeah, I'm trying to discuss with you, and if you can't be respectful of me trying to have a discussion, I mean, that's. Okay, I'm going to still address it anyway.
We're going to address it,
you need to be respectful, please. I'm trying to respect you.
Yeah.
All right.
If you want a discussion, and then you want to straw man people and not let us respond to those claims.
As far as I'm aware, Sam Harris has not ever advocated blowing up people. Now, Christopher Hitchens, on the other hand, toward the end of his life, from what I understand, in one speech referred to Muslim people as enemies. I don't recall him advocating violence still, but rather referred to them in very antagonistic terms. And I don't agree with that, because I think that's, taking it too far.
I think he was closing in on an enemies of reason.
Sure.
Would be more, but yeah, and maybe the words.
It may have been way too antagonistic of him to say, and it doesn't help progress things. And I think that's a problem. But also, I don't share the Russell's teapot or former caller. I don't share his opinion that faith does fulfill something that's necessary. Now, do Christians and Muslims believe it does? Yes. I used to be one. My parents still are. This is why I was raising this point that you didn't care about. My parents very much believe that faith is important in their lives, and they believe that it has to stay. And we have a caller. So we'll go and take our caller.
All right. Yes, hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hello. Hey, this is Faithless Forrest. I've been watching the show.
Hey.
And something that previous caller said made one comment. He was saying that, he thought the new atheists were perhaps, and then I think he implied, they maybe trying to root something.
You're breaking up, Forrest.
You're breaking up on us, Forrest.
Let's speak a little loud. See if
it's not working.
You're breaking up.
Yeah,
it's getting worse.
Speak quietly and see if that helps.
No. It's not helping.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's say goodbye, man.
All right. Thanks for calling. Go ahead. I'll let you.
I've got a quick one for Russell. Russell's teapot, who I question now if you know what that is.
Yeah.
With regard to the statements that you made.
Yeah.
We can talk about that at Barley's later on tonight if you'd like. But he immediately tainted this well, the same as William Lane Craig does with the New Atheist. He said Sam Harris wants to commit this jihadist type activities against religion, faith, these ideas. That is absolutely not the case. Sam Harris would typically have, in fact, a lot of the definitions of faith that I'm using here, a lot of the way that we're expressing these ideas, which Russell, who just called in, agreed with. Actually, I developed those ideas reading Sam Harris's book.
Some of them, yes.
Not all of them, but some of them. And the New Atheists are, in fact, the people that we're right here that have just said, look at faith. I just talk about how I could still see some of it as a virtue. I mean, we have these discussions. No one has a jihadist type attitude that is ridiculous.
Or at least very few. There are some extreme
I'm sure.
people.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I say no one?
You did.
I shouldn't use absolutist words like that, but there are some.
But it's not Sam Harris. It's
certainly not the movement.
Christopher Hitchens. Like most of the free thinkers, atheists and such that I'm aware of, have seen, watched and such, would be against those positions. We're more in favor of peaceful coexistence.
I heard just the other day, even from someone in another skeptical group, talking about the arrogance and erudite attitude of like Dawkins, and this person mentioned Dawkins along with Harris and some others, and the idea behind this is mostly propaganda. If you look back at Carl Sagan, everything he said was pretty much just as arrogant as what's being said now. You read Demon Haunted World, his language is just as, with a few exceptions, mostly speaking mannerisms. Hitchens isn't far away. He's much more combative, or might throw some words out that you don't. He uses those words.
Yeah.
And Carl used them in an exploring way, and that was the difference. But the criticisms themselves were just as powerful, and just as arrogant, and everything that goes along with them. It's simply, in my experience, it's just been an effort of propaganda that has been successful to the most part.
Right.
And I wanted to fight that. I can't stand it. I think that caller, when he calls in, I really wonder, is he out there spreading this nonsense? He said he read the book, didn't read the book.
And to be fair to Russell, if you're still watching, I agree with you that there is, in a lot of places in the atheist forums and such, far too combative of an attitude toward people who are religious. Right. It does bother me, and I spend a lot of time correcting that attitude, that I feel it's unfair, unnecessary, because, I think religious people have the right to be religious and have the right to have faith if they so desire. That's their business. I don't agree with it, and that's why I'm here with John, and we're talking about why we don't agree, and we invite people to call in and share their thoughts, as, we had you on to share. So I think that it's something I would like. I personally would like to see faith go away in the same way I'd like to see certain fashions go away, or certain actors or actresses or something. Justin Bieber's music, but it's not something I'm going to go out and kill people over or advocate violence for. It's not at all worth.
It's really not that far away. Faith, all you got to do is mold it more towards trust, which is the word that gets used a lot for the same word, but and then throw in a lot of skepticism. I trust, I don't have a kid, but if I trust my child will be home when curfew's up, right? Sure. Come on, man, use your skepticism and get in there and and trust is earned. Okay, faith is not. Faith is essentially giving up.
Right.
That's where faith is not virtuous.
I like referring to it as a blank check that people write to themselves to cash in for whatever beliefs they want. It's basically free money that really shouldn't exist. So. We have a caller for our last minute.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. You've got about 50 seconds. Could we have a nickname and a quick point from you? Hello?
Yeah, what's happening? First is right virtue. Any help you got in your life is a virtue. Anything you got that drives you has to be a virtue.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think to a degree we agree with that. It's just, is there flaws in that way of thinking? And can we rule them out and replace it with something better, as Ben was talking about?
And not everything that drives a person is a good thing.
I'm sorry, caller, we're going to have to let you go. The show's
we really are out of time.
We got about 40 seconds left.
You're being ignorant.
We invite you to call.
I'm going to have to let you go. I'm sorry.
Sir, we invite you to call back next week, but we've got to start closing the show. You're also more than welcome to come visit us at Barley's, as long as you are very polite and open-minded.
You can call us ignorant, though. It's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. It is time to start wrapping things up. Get out your pen and paper. This has been Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee.
Please send us feedback. Leave us voicemail at 865-272-9060, and email us at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com.
You can see the show on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on this Knoxville station. And
It's